Hello there, this is Marcio Galli, and this is another episode of Coding with Agents or Culture Coding with Agents. And today, like the other episodes, we're going to go through the routine of a developer, a builder, and in some of these cases, pausing to make reflections, to think about what's new in terms of working with AI agents now as we go through the AI agentic days. Okay. Now, of course, throughout this episodes, you're going to see there are many new things, but things are new at all from certain aspect. But I think the fact that we have more people able to do things that generally we needed others to do. It doesn't matter if these others, well, are they were beings like human beings, but it doesn't matter if they were acting like mechanical, like when the culture formats you to be like a robot, right? So we know what's that, right? That's uh, it's actually sometimes we're like scared about the future, but somehow we're not scared about the things the things in front of us, right? Because you're just used to it, right? But now the real thing is, right now, so if some people are doing with others like subordinates, think about the idea of subordinates or um, agencies where everything is transactional, right? You give something, you write down a document using a logical system like a situation, complication, question, answer. Here's what I want, and then you get your results, right? It's pretty much transactional things, and in many kinds of domains, different domains, what we have is straightforward work, right? And it's really common to have work that is just a pure execution, right? Like do as I told you kind of thing. Now, if that's the case, right? Here's the thing: these activities, in this maybe, if you consider that scenario, lots of these things can be done by agents. So now the real question is, well, or the complication, what's new here is that we're giving these co-workers, these colleagues or subordinates, call it whatever you want, to people that could never manage them before. So in other words, we're provoking the manager, we're provoking the protagonist to go through the challenge of being a manager before time, right? And many of the articles that we see, right? Many of the discoveries that people are making about the agents, it's essentially, it seems, big part of this subject, especially for articles being written by practitioners in the field of entrepreneurship and administration and organization, even perhaps behavioral um, science, or the subjects related to human behavior in work. What you see there is they're like having this big aha moment. Oh yeah, if you can, since you can make three wishes, right? You're probably gonna get like make the wrong wishes, or the AI is going to implement lots of things for you, then you don't know what's going on, and then you're gonna be lost, right? You're wasting your time because you're accelerating. Well, all those things were invented before, right? Well, it just so happens that we're doing that with humans from ages, and then it's fine, right? Because that's work, because that's about paying a person's life to work in the end of the day. So in the case of the humans, it's quite interesting, the problem, right? Because if something is wasted work, then it seems to be okay as long as you're supporting that person's life, right? So there's that subject in there. All right, I guess this is the episode, right? I usually I go and I enter a session there in this in front of this so far version that I have here using the text editor, in this case using GPT 5.2 codecs. But then in some of these episodes, just going straight to a reflection as well. So I guess that's it today. I wonder if I just should divide this video in two since I'm recording here, right? Because I've seen a case here. Before I entered this session, I had a case in there in my desktop. And you see on the right hand side, that's visual code, by the way. Okay. Now let me show you this. See, check it out, that beginning of that conversation. This is a new day, right? This is a new day here, new working day. It's morning in Brazil. And it starts like this, right? Hello there. All right. Let us create a new memo. Okay. You see, the last one we did is the 2025 12 20 010, right? So if you see on the left hand side, right? By the way, I recorded that with voice using Whisper Flow, the what I like to call the Jarvis, right? Commander, voice based keyboard. All right. So you see that there's a memo there, right? So back there. Okay. So today's date is the 22nd of December, and you can use the style of the prior memo. Okay, you see it in terms of the headings, markdown, some jargon there. The name on top. This is Marcio Galli, by the way. So my name here is double L, right? Let's just fix that. Next, I'm going to give you a scope of a conversation I had with a colleague. Okay, check it out this. Because here's the thing. This colleague was of this conversation, okay, is this, right? This is the conversation, okay? Well, that's the thing that I'm doing copy and paste. And you see here, if you go, right, if you go up, this, it was a prior session, right, where I was using voice with the local client, ChatGPT voice-based interface. So, I had like, hello there, right? Hello. And all right, I was thinking I need to brainstorm about the system that I have here. And if I type the text, would you get the scope or I need to inform you via voice, etc.? I didn't know if I wanted to keep recording via voice, but I knew I wanted to, do some ping pong there, pass the ball one to the other, warm up, brainstorming things to start mentalizing some of the ideas there. And then I went on and on and on and on, and we went on together. That's it. At some point, and this is interesting because the new interface in terms of the voice-based interface in ChatGPT Plus is now, unlike before, gives us the text, right, together with a voice. So that's very interesting, right? So, for instance, if I flip here to voice, hello there, how are you, my friend? Are you still there?
Absolutely, I'm right here. I'm doing great and ready to help out whenever you need. Just let me know what's next.
Okay, could you give me three bullets for what we discussed?
Of course, let me give you a quick recap in 3 bullets. Widget to editor communication API. We're going to set up a dedicated API in the editor. This API will let widgets insert or replace sections by referencing section IDs, keeping everything organized and hash based. Staging and section management will introduce a staging area where transformed images or new content can be placed before they get committed. This way, the editor remains the single point of control for final commits, and each section can be managed consistently. Consistent hashing and export. By converting Markdown into hashed sections and back, we'll ensure that every time we re-export, the same sections remain consistent. This keeps the editor's workflow stable and ensures the widgets produce predictable results each time.
Thank you very much. Now, check it out, right? What you have here. The thing is, there's text here, and let me see in the browser interface if that's updated. This is not exactly updated yet, so I'm going to reload there in the browser interface, right? Because those are the same systems. And then it's to reloading or something, doesn't really matter. Now, check it out this, right? This is here. Then when I switch to text, right, I can type in a chat, right? Oh yeah, see like the three bullets, right? So the voice-based conversations there, the prior conversation, right? And now I have something to the memo, right? So that's the thing that I'm giving to the other colleague, because the goal there, right? That's a brainstorm. That's a key result. So if you wanted to put in OKR terms, right? Management by objectives or OKR. So have a goal. There are some updates with the text editor, and that goal is associated with the business goal on top. It doesn't really matter now. But essentially, the introduction there is that this guy wants to improve the interfaces between his editor system and the plugins for an editor. All right. Now, this guy wants to do something. Key result one for that specific activity, right? Or to close the gap there, right? For so the goal gets closer, we can achieve the goal, the objective. And then key result one, do the brainstorming. Key result two, write a memo about what we're going to implement. Key result three, implement a prototype first version of that and let's evaluate. Right? That's how we close the gap right there. Okay. Now I get this, right? And I go back to that communication, right? Go back there. And I say, next I'm going to give you a scope of a conversation I had with a colleague, right? And the thing we're doing now, next, in this memo, is actually to, the objective is to update the text editor. And the general context is that we're improving the plugin system. So the plugin system, the widgets, what we called widgets in the prior memos, we're essentially creating an interface so that the widgets can talk with the main editor. That's the general context for the introduction, this memo. And the output we want to make is implementation changes. But right now, for you, what we are doing is the memo which specifies the activity to do, right? So please first consider the summary of the conversation that I had with that colleague. Right. So we have the text there, right? Because by the way, right, again, I'm using Jarvis, Whisperflow. Summary of the conversation with the colleague. Now, the act of pasting something, right? Because somebody told me that, right? We we know it's that, right? He told me, she told us, right? It wasn't me, right? So widget to editor communication API. We're going to set up a dedicated API I'm going to change to structure API. Structure. Here is, I'm taking the message of the colleague, right, and adding bias there. Structure API in error. This API will let widgets insert replace sections. Staging and section management, right? Staging oriented. See, what's going on here is that I'm taking the result of the colleague and I'm saying it needs a review, right? Because you know why I'm doing now and I didn't do through in the conversation? Because when you're doing brainstorming, when you essentially have there, it's like if you look from the process of a writer, it's a draft. You're vomiting a draft. When you're vomiting a draft, you can't stop, right? You're unstoppable. But then, and it should be, the brainstorming should be protected, right? It's like parents allow the kid to play in a sandbox because, of course, there's some guardrails there or something. Now, if we interfere that process, right, with like a critic on top, right, we damage the value of the brainstorm. We know that. We didn't need the AI days to know that, right? We discovered that first. Uh, Now, the real critic comes, right, into the scene after. It's a post-mortem, it's a post-brainstorm episode, right? The real critic comes after. And then you're like, why it was natural right now? Right? Why it's so natural that I'm able to on the fly now I couldn't in the brainstorm interfere. Well, now I can because this is an editing process oriented to a goal, because this is the real life, it's real world, because now it's when the results of a brainstorming are going to you're gonna put the the thing in a frying pan, right? And somebody's gonna eat that, and if you don't put a touch of life in there, right, you can hurt people, right, because you're being responsible right now. And this is when you cut, right, excesses. This is when reality it's in front of you, right? So that's the kind of editing is going on there, and that's straightforward, right? You don't have to suffer to that, because that there is a in the afternoon today I gotta deliver something here, so I won't go crazy. I need to you know be hands on, right? Feet on the ground. Yes. So I don't have to do it right now, right? I just wanted to make a point. Thank you very much. Let us wrap up this session, because I always say the same thing is like, leave the party when things are okay before trouble. Thank you very much.